about, which is, we talk about sales data all the time. Everybody does. We talk about market movers, where you can get your first month for only $1 by using the promo code no off season. We've had a lot of positive feedback on market movers. And a lot of people use Card Ladder. We talked about alt last week with Chase from Texas Roadshow Shop. And then there's also like Kendall sells on Loop with Wild Cards box breaks with his partner T. They sell on Loop. They sell, and so there's card shows. There's Facebook groups and where buying and selling happen all the time. So my point is, in its nature, to just look at eBay alone isn't the full picture. And then on top of that, there's all these other marketplaces, MySlabs, PWCC. We start pulling in data at the Sports Card Investment Report from MySlabs and PWCC, which I think is a good idea because I think the more ways our audience can see people selling cards, the better. But then Paul's brought up some good points about just the reliability of the data. And so, Paul, I'll let you kind of take it from here on. I won't steal your thunder, but you go ahead and tell us the good, the bad, and the ugly of what you found out about this stuff.
Yeah, so it's I consigned for the first time to PWCC the Premier auction a few weeks ago, and took some pretty heavy losses. Obviously, it's hard to. This is the first time losing money on big cards for me, so it made me really start thinking about like what went wrong here. Like this is interesting. There's obviously a learning curve sometimes, but a moment of self-reflection to say, okay, like I got to slow down, analyze why this happened, and then what are the implications from what happened, and what did I learn? So the more and more I've actually kind of gone down this gopher hole, the more and more I actually get a little bit worried about some of the things that I'm seeing. One thing, I've been a very devout Card Ladder person for the last year. With it being owned by Collectors Universe, I guess maybe I thought like, hey, this is really, really legit stuff. Like it's the same company that owns PSA. They own Golden Auctions. Like this must be, really, really, really legit. So when the data from PWC Premier came in, I was really surprised because it takes a long time to get paid out from what you consign. So I was looking at the comps from the auction, and all of a sudden they're all listed on Card Ladder. And I think, well, that's really interesting because I bought a couple cards at the auction, which, ultimately I hadn't paid for yet. So why is that being posted? And vice versa. I know my card hasn't been paid for. So why is it also being posted as a comp? So that's suspicious to me. Like, that's a piece of data that is, basically being booked as a comp, and to the average naked eye, the person wouldn't know that it actually isn't a transaction that's been completed. So got me looking a little deeper, and it's quite concerning actually when you peel away the onion. So Card Ladder's been taking data feeds from PWCC, data feeds from eBay, and creating comps. I started looking at some of the cards that I lost money on. In particular, one was an Exquisite Steph rookie card, an auto, 9.5. And I'm starting to look back through some of the sales history in Card Ladder, and I'm seeing, okay, so that card, that's not a card that transacts very often. That's a fairly high dollar value card. That was, 6 months ago, that was a $35,000 card. Okay, that's very interesting. So it sold in April, and then 14 days later it sold again. Well, okay, like let me go back and search eBay search history for sales history. Oh wow, that's the same card. Oh well, it just wasn't paid for, and now there's two pieces of two comps. Wow, I actually looked at that comp, the $25,000.
Yeah.
Oh wow, it's down from 35. That's a good buy. It wasn't paid for at 25. It was paid for at 21. So
that's really hard to determine.
So all of a sudden, I'm thinking, oh my God, what have I been doing? I've been so devout to Card Ladder, looking at all of these all of these comps that have been posted, and I've been looking at this as, you know, these comps must be real. It's this is owned by Collectors Universe. This must be real. And I'm starting to think, wow, okay, this is not good. So I reached out to PWCC.
Uh-oh.
So Paul reached out to PWCC. He's frozen a little bit.
Sorry.
He's back.
Yeah,
He's back.
you're good. You're good. You're back.
Reached out to PWCC.
Reached out to PWCC's management team and said, hey, what's going on here? You guys are feeding data to Card Ladder? What are you talking about? We're feeding data to Card Ladder. They just take it from us. Oh, that's interesting. So that's not a data feed, and they're just taking that information and posting it as a comp. Are you sure that's the actual case? Oh, okay, well, let me ask someone else a little bit higher up. And the escalation kept going higher up. Oh, no, this is something we're working on in our back-end development. Eventually, we're going to have a data feed whereby, you know, we'll send information on stuff that isn't paid for, and there'll be a little star on it. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. So Card Ladder and you have been talking to the point where it's in your development system. So if that's the case, why wouldn't Card Ladder go to eBay to ask for the same data feed to set up an infrastructure whereby anything that wasn't paid for or shilled or anything like that, there would be a real data feed from eBay to Card Ladder? So if they were able to have that conversation with PWCC, why weren't they able to have that conversation with eBay? So I don't know. I think that there's some very suspicious stuff going on in and around Card Ladder. I've reached out to Nat Turner at Collectors Universe. I'm waiting for a response. I think this is a very dangerous thing for the hobby. If there's situations whereby, especially at the very high end, there's been comps of cards that have not been paid for, and people are making investment decisions in and around data feeds that they're supposedly, you know, supposed to feel comfortable with. And all of a sudden we're learning that Card Ladder's been booking comps of stuff that didn't actually transact. We got a real problem. That's going to be very ugly to figure out, because that's going to lead to significant losses for people if they've made decisions based off of what they've religiously used.
Yeah, and you even said, like, you did your research based on that Steph Curry card being a good deal.
Yeah.
When in fact it didn't actually get paid for at that price. And Cool Arrow is saying, thanks again for the comment. Love your comments. And we're going to answer more of your stuff later on the show. Everyone who's commenting and asking questions, we're going to get to it later on in the show. But Cool Arrow is saying that happened with the Jimmy Butler PSA 10 Kaboom. He sold, they never paid for it. It came with a sale. I remember, I don't know that this is like a fact, but I do remember Jeff Wilson on a Sports Card Investor podcast last year saying that this was a problem, and that market movers, he made a comment on the podcast, like, market movers wipes the data of these unpaid for sales at a certain point. Like, they'll show up in market movers, but then they wipe them out after, like,
so to that point, Paul, that's what PWCC came back to me and told me that they do is eventually, there's only about 2% of auctions that go unpaid for at PWCC. So they eventually wipe it. So that there's a 30-day vesting period for payments to be made after PWCC Premier, and I'm not sure what the payment cycle is on the weekly, but they will eventually wipe the data. I think what's most concerning, though, is that if Card Ladder has the infrastructure or the desire to want to wipe PWCC data clean, why are they not wiping eBay data clean? Because that's the one. It's not the PWCC. I believe that most people are paying for auctions there. eBay is super suspicious. Like, we all have sold on eBay. It's like probably 50% of your cards go unpaid for on eBay at this point in time, right? So if all of that, if the only data feed going to Card Ladder is PWCC and eBay, what's the percentage? I mean, eBay card, there's so many more cards transacted on eBay. So most of the transactions that are feeding Card Ladder's data set are coming from eBay, and we know a large percentages of those transactions don't actually happen. We got some concerning stuff going on here.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'd have to go. Now I'm going to go back through my eBay sales and determine the amount that have gone unpaid for. For me personally, it definitely hasn't been anywhere near close to 50%. it's been more. Now mine are much more lower end cards.
Yeah.
So that could be why. And
I've actually never had that happen to me.
Yeah, I've sold probably 500 cards on eBay over the last 12 to 18 months, and I think maybe only 10 or 11 times have they gone unpaid for. But
at the higher end, like if you watch Probstein on eBay, you see cards relisted all the time. It's very interesting how, you know, some of the cards in that, we'll call it like $5,000 to $20,000 range, how many of them actually transact. And that's a card that is, that's probably your highest chill probability is in that type of dollar figure as well, right? Like that's someone with some serious loot on the line. They don't want to lose. Maybe they shill it along at an auction. And certainly I don't want to throw shade or make accusations. I'm just saying statistically, cards in that $5,000 to $20,000 range seem like they're reposted on eBay quite a bit.
Yeah, no, that is definitely good information, and it definitely is a problem. And anything else, Paul, that you want to share from your, because I know you've been digging on this.
Yeah, so I'm digging hard. I'm super competitive, and taking a loss is something like that. I'm just I'm partly like, you know, is this game rigged? That's what I'm trying to figure out. You know, is there certain things that I need to learn that I've done that are just not right? Because, you know, taking 5-figure losses on a card it's hard to stomach, right? I think one thing that I've learned is that ultimately you want to have control to sell a card into the largest market possible, right? So one thing that I learned with PWCC Premier in particular was, you know, at the top end, you're going to have very affluent buyers that are after those major chase cards, you know, the Curry RPA, and, you know, some of those cards that continually set benchmarks for record-breaking pricing. But at the low end of an auction like that, you know, the cards are $15,000 to $20,000. There's just not a tremendous amount of buyers that are subscribed to using that. Like, you just don't get a lot of eyeballs on your product. So, and on top of that, you have to be qualified to be able to bid in a premier like auction. You know, you're not selling your card into the largest market possible, and you want to have, whether it's, you know, someone, a big whale that's got tons of cash that wants to buy your card, or someone that's scraped together pennies to be able to buy their first ever high-end card, you want to have access to all buyers to ensure that your card gets the highest price. And I think there's a ton of concern in and around the auction houses, whether it's PWCC or Golden. And I'm telling you right now, the prices there are falling. There is a bloodbath going on, falling knives in that $5,000 to $20,000 range for cards right now, because those auction houses just don't have enough buyers to support the liquidity that's coming on the market right now. So as a seller, I think that's super concerning. And you might be, you know, like if you need liquidity, you could take a massive loss. You might not take a 20% loss. You might take a 50% loss. I mean, I've bought some stuff over the last couple months. I know buyers, because I can see sales history where they've bought it 6 months ago. They're off 70% on GOAT cards. That's a problem. You don't want to put yourself in a position whereby you are taking massive losses because there's not enough liquidity in the market where you're selling into.
Yeah. And I wonder, I mean, this might be a little bit off base, but I do wonder, I've thought about this. If I'm going to sell a 5-figure card, I know the like higher 5-figure cards, 6-figure cards, basically everyone's going to go to an auction house. But I think that when you go with the auction house, when it sells, you're stuck. Like, that's it. It's gone. But if you sell it on eBay, I'm not saying this is the right thing to do, but if you take a 5-figure bath on an auction on eBay, you actually don't have to ship that card. You know, I mean, it's not going to be great for your, Kendall, you can speak to this. It's not going to be great for your, you know, you might get into a conflict with someone, and they might give you a bad rating. And, you know, I don't know what else would happen beyond that, but, you know, you don't have to ship that card. But when you go with an auction house, my guess is that they've got your card already and you're done. Like, that's it. So
yeah, there's a lot of hidden costs. I would advise the community here to seriously look at these auction houses, because even as a buyer, There are, you've got a 20% buyer premium. There's all kinds of hidden costs. What you see on the auction that you're bidding on is not the final price. That's a really, really, really important thing to watch is that what you think the price is, that's not it. There's hidden costs with vaults and things like that as well. Obviously, when you sell the card, then there's a consignment fee. You better be very, very, very certain that you're able to make a return, because you're eroding a serious percentage of your return in transaction costs as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. You're absolutely right on that. And you got to
auction houses, Paul, they always win. It's like when you go to Vegas, the house always wins. I will say this. PWCC and Golden always win. They actually don't care about consigners making returns. They want transaction volume. It's all about revenue, because they clip a percentage of revenue. And that was my point was, if there's concerns on a long-term basis that there's not enough buyers to support premier level auctions, if all of the people that are consigning cards to auction houses are taking 50, 60, 70% losses, what actually ends up happening is that everyone leaves that auction house. So it's in the best long-term interest for the auction houses to have fewer auctions, to shorten the amount. You have higher standards for what maybe needs to go into a premier level auction. It won't last forever if people are taking significant losses.
Yeah. So Alex Mancinas, Alex, thank you for this question. What happens when a customer does not pay for the card? Do they get a negative buyer rating? Do they get the account suspended? And Cool Arrow has commented that from their understanding, nothing happens. If someone does it a certain amount of times, 6-month period, they have an opportunity to stop those types of accounts from bidding in their auctions. Kendall, this was kind of my understanding as well, but are they correct on this on eBay?
Yeah, I mean, this is like literally the worst part of the hobby. Like it happens all the time. Luckily, I haven't had very much experience with that, but and let me just also caveat this: there's a lot of fear on the Facebook pages and all that kind of stuff. You just see it roaming. You're just like, people are like, oh, like I don't want to do this because of, I don't want to trust somebody. It's like, tough nuts, like grow up and trust somebody, I think my personal philosophy is trust people until they don't deserve it. And now that's just my own ethical framework, like obviously it's a whole different thing, but in this regard, I know that eBay, that's something I'm just going to pause it there. I'm not going to want to get any more into that. In regards to the email or the eBay stuff, selling stuff is always a risk, whether it's sports cards or a house, like it's not always going to be a perfect transaction, and so when you put your stuff out there, there's this relationship that you're kind of trusting the market with it. And I think, in regards to what eBay is trying to do, I have heard murmurs to where they are trying to do different things to try to make it a more reliable sale, because I know eBay also is realizing that the sports card market is 95% of what they're doing. Like eBay, obviously you can sell and buy a bunch of stuff on eBay, but it's not what it was in the early 2000s, where people were selling, Coca-Cola wallpaper for $6 a roll. And then, like, it's just like, that's not it anymore. It's really just look at what they're doing with the vault. They know where they're going. There's actually a little beta thing that you can look at, and it'll show your buys and sells, and it'll track your profit margins. So that's actually already in the platform. So I think eBay is trying to go that direction as an e-commerce platform, that they want to be the premier. And I think this is obviously something they're going to have to figure out, because it's probably the biggest thing that the biggest hit on eBay is that there's so much false buyers and there's so many like false purchases. And then also you can look at price manipulation. Like if Paul, for instance, if I list a Gretzky PSA 5 and I say, hey, Paul, I want you to go buy this card from me for $2,000 or whatever, and I'm going to send you the $2,000 to make it a premier purchase. And then you just, I'm basically just putting a small percentage tax on, like, you're only like, if I'm giving you that money to buy it from me, then I'm just paying the seller fee basically to get an official comp out there so that I can go to a show and sell it for that. you know, and so
Kendall, like that's the concerning thing about Card Ladder, right? Like I know there's legit comps on Card Ladder on a card that I've lost 5 figures on in the last 30 days that it did not sell, and I use that data. Like I have to take ownership. Like I use that data. I lost that money, but I fell into using a platform like Card Ladder that was supposed to be legit comps. It wasn't.
Now, I don't know from eBay's perspective how you get around something like that. I mean, fraudulent purchases are part of any marketplace, really. But I would be interested to know how eBay would you know, like if I could see eBay in front of me, whoever it was I'm talking to, and I said, "Hey, how can I defend against this? I give Paul some money," and he's like, "Well, that's a criminal investigation. I can't really, you know, what do you do with that?" But
Still things really hard. The non-paid is easy, because if PWCC is telling us that they're telling Card Ladder the items that go unpaid for, if Card Ladder could set up the infrastructure to be able to get that data feed from PWCC, eBay could give Card Ladder a data feed as well.
That's what I do like that about 130 point is 130 point shows you the money that was transacted. And so there are some marketplaces out there that are just pulling sales data rather than buy data rather than sales data. And so I know that eBay is moving towards, I've seen in the news that they're moving towards, like specifically for buy it now auctions, you have to put the money up front when you make the bid, like when you make the potential offer or anything like that. Like there won't, from what I've understand, and I don't know when this is going to, or if it already is, I don't know if they have like a plan to roll this out, but I've seen it to where they are going to make it where you have to put the money kind of like in this escrow fund before you make the final bid. So when I accept the offer, it immediately comes through rather than accepting the offer and then just saying like, hope they pay.
I love that. Okay, so I'm glad that you brought that up, because first of all, I had no idea that was going to happen. So thanks for
now. I don't know if that is for sure happening, but I know that they've talked about it.
I love that. So if that does happen, then I think that obviously helps big time with the issue that we're talking about, at least on eBay. And it leads me to believe, like typically when you start to see like things change on platforms like that, it usually leads to more change if that change works, quote unquote, for the platform and its users, right? If the users like it, they're going to make more changes along those lines. So thinking this through, if that does happen, Kendall, and then the sellers like it and the buyers like it, all the users like it enough, then why wouldn't they implement something like when you list a card for auction on eBay, you can set the starting bid, but you can also set like a minimum reserve price that item actually needs to sell. And why wouldn't eBay use its own sold purchased data for that same card within the last X amount of time to set that price, so that it almost would effectively mean that the market, like that something couldn't necessarily happen like what happened to Paul. Like, Paul's in a different stratosphere than what you and I are in terms of like the cards that we're selling. But even if you and I go try to sell a $500 card, there's always a risk that we might only get $350 for that card. But if eBay implemented something like the bidder has to commit to a charge on their card right now to say X% of the reserve price or something like that, that could help like us taking huge losses on these cards that we know are worth more.
Yeah, it's like a stop loss with a stock. I mean, I think eBay, I'm a huge fan of eBay. If I'm betting on anyone to figure this out on a go forward, I'm all in on eBay. I've lost trust in the auction houses. I will never, ever, ever consign again, just based off of my whole experience. I want to have control. I mean, I think with eBay, they're already starting to work on some of that infrastructure by spitting out algorithms that give you a suggested price. So making you more knowledgeable about sales history within their own framework. But if anyone's going to figure this out, I believe it's going to be eBay. I think that most sellers are probably best served keeping to eBay. It's the largest reach. It's the most international reach in terms of selling your product into the largest market. You're probably most protected as a seller under eBay from a worldwide perspective. Yeah, I think that this is something it's going to be super interesting to see. Like at the high end, yeah, for sure, the Goldens of the world should probably exist, right? But it's the middle tier. Like what I don't see is, I just don't see. PWCC used to be like the largest consigner or reseller of cards on eBay. Then they got the boot from eBay or what, I don't know what exactly happened. Then they build their own platform and they're trying to like, create this breakaway platform and take buyers over there that used to be on eBay. Like that's not good for the industry. You got to centralize where the buyers are. Like they all need to be in one marketplace so that you get the highest price for cards. What's happening right now is the worst possible thing for sellers. It's great for buyers. If we weren't in a declining market right now, this would be a great thing for buyers because there's not enough buyers in any platform to support good pricing. I've heard alts the exact same way, that the pricing's terrible. As a seller, people are getting killed right now. And if you're a buyer that knows how to scoop up sharp deals over there, you can make tons of money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
I just wanted to notice a caveat. There is a feature on eBay of a minimum sale auction. The unfortunate part is it's like it doesn't really make sense to not just say this is the first minimum bid,
right?
Because it's transparent by saying this like for instance, I bid on something one time and it was like probably should have been like $100 card, and I ended up getting I won the auction at like $35, and then I got a notification that said you did actually not win this auction. It was held until it was at $75.
Yep.
And I'm like, then why would you even waste time with that?
Yeah.
Like then just say that. Like it actually really pissed me off because I think what it is like this false hype. Like you're getting all these other like 0 through $75 bids. They're basically meaningless, but it just shows that you've got people raising their hand willing to be involved, so that at the $75 level, you've got 6 people getting notifications instead of 1. And I'm like, totally. That's crummy business right there.
It's people are getting eyeballs. There was a guy that was selling, it was a Toronto-based seller that was selling an 86 Jordan rookie card, PSA 10, and as was selling it on eBay. And I thought, that's interesting. Why would you sell that on eBay? Especially because a lot of American buyers are a little hesitant to buy from Canada as well, just not knowing how the border's how it's gonna shake out. So I sent him a message.
Yeah, customs and stuff.
Yeah, I asked him, he's based in Toronto. I said, why are you doing this? And he said, it's the largest amount of eyeballs I can possibly get. This is a worldwide platform that is appealing to people everywhere. And got me thinking,
I actually buy a lot of cards from Canada.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes there's deals because people are afraid.
That's exactly why, is because my dollar goes further in Canada.
And like, I think that eBay is going to figure it out. I actually really do. Whether it becomes a deposit system. I mean, when you buy a house, you got to put a deposit down on the house. If the house drops in value, you have the option to walk away from your deposit. That's the whole.
I would love for eBay to potentially partner with some sort of credit system, some sort of bank, to say like, and have sort of like an eBay credit system built in, saying, hey, we will, like you can't make bids over a certain amount because you're not a trusted buyer yet. Yep. And then like say like, hey, say Paul, buys a card from me for $500. eBay immediately credits me the $500, and they figure out the payment between them and Paul. And there's a credit system attached to it.
That's so easy to actually do. Like, I mean, the buy now, pay later companies like Klarna, for example, right? Or PayBright or Sezzle or any of those, like they all have ability to check credit. Like there would absolutely be a fairly easy partnership out there for eBay to partner with someone that can process credit quickly, because any retailer that's using a buy now, pay later has to have the ability to process credit quickly. That's actually something that could be done that would be like wonderfully successful, I think.
The problem is you're going to have to dox yourself, and people are not doxing themselves because there's a whole issue in the credit or in the card market that people are not paying taxes on their sales and buys.
Yeah.
And so that with the credit system, you get, that's a reporting system Therefore, you're going to have to owe money to Uncle Sam or whoever, whatever the Canada Uncle Sam is.
Yeah, fair enough. And I mean, I think all of that stuff's going to happen anyways. People are
that's true.
I mean, everyone's probably just compiling losses at this point, so maybe there won't be any profits that you have for the next couple of years.
You can report capital losses.
Exactly. Bank those losses this year, right? But
there's a positive for you with PWCC. You can capital loss.
Yeah, exactly. All changes that are going to happen, though. This is all, and if you look in the crystal ball of this hobby, these are good questions that I think we're all asking.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is a phenomenal discussion, and we've got some guys in the chat that are.
I know these questions have been good, but like we're on a roll.
Yeah, I know. I haven't wanted to interrupt you guys either, and I think that like the point is, and I agree with Paul. Like eBay has the ability to implement these things way easier than anyone else. And from everything Kendall said, from everything Paul said with a credit system, and then we've got Alex Mancinas in the chat making good points. We've got Cool Arrow in the chat making good points. And I think Alex's point is like, this could benefit the sellers, but handicap the buyers, but not necessarily, because if eBay comes out and says, look, because everyone's a buyer and a seller. That's kind of the point. Like so like if
that's the trick to our hobby.
That's right.
We're just making money so we can buy other cards.
So yeah, and some of us are taking money out of cards every once in a while, and that's great. But like for the most part, we're all buyers and sellers. So like whenever I've overpaid for a card on eBay, I've always paid for every single auction, every single buy it now that I've ever won, because not only because it's the right thing to do. That's the reason why I do it. But really, reason 1B is because I'm also a seller. I don't want eBay to come back to me, even though there's no like policy for this or, no examples of this necessarily happening. I think that it could start happening, and maybe it should start happening, where it's like, hey, if these cards go unpaid for from your account, now you're not able to sell over a certain amount, or, and eBay has the ability to just take it away. They took it away from PWCC. They could take it away from any of us. So we should all pay for our cards. I hope that day is coming, because I think that kind of government of it would make a lot of sense for the hobby. So,
yeah, I hate the idea you brought up earlier where you were like, yeah, I could just not sell it.
I know.
Go!
I hate that too. I hate that too. But yeah, it could, but I think that a mix of all of these things would be the best, right? Maybe we should write our own little manifesto, sports card strategy group manifesto to eBay.
99 thesis, we'll nail it to their door.
Yeah.
Do you guys think, I mean, there's some good stuff going on here. Do you guys think that there's people at PWCC and Golden sitting around talking about this stuff right now?
No.
I actually don't.
No. I don't.
That was a point that I made, when I was having conversations about, some of my reservations about the data and stuff like this. And, I don't actually believe that there are conversations about how do you protect sellers to get the highest price possible? How do you create transparent marketplaces? All of those things. I don't believe some of that stuff is going on.
And I've got friends that have previously worked in some of these industries, and there's some nasty stories going on. And I won't name any names or companies, but they're companies you know of. And there's some sideways action going on, whether that's in the selling market or in the production market, whether that is like on the line or whether that is, in the secondary. There's some sideways things going on. So,
yeah, but we all
just like any other industry,
Yeah, and that's just exactly it. And for the most part, I think everyone is trying to do their best to grow the hobby. I mean, companies need to be profitable. They need to, but all of those things, it's all interconnected, right? Like if buyers and sellers go away, there are no profits for companies. Like it all requires, when you think about your business being 6, 12, 18, 24 months down the road, having that forward outlook to say, this is where things are going, right? And I think as consumers or people that are, using these services, it's okay to ask. It's okay to ask about, I saw this comp and then, it wasn't paid for. And ask questions. Like it's fair. If you pay for a service, it's okay to ask a question and hope to get a transparent answer. And if that answer isn't good, if it's not good enough, or if there is no answer, that's a problem. And it's okay to wave your hand and say, I'm not okay with that answer as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And and we've had some questions in the chat during this discussion, some of them about the vault services, some of them about other services related to eBay and PWCC. And I think bringing us back full circle to where Paul Fisher kind of brought in this awesome information is that he inquired about, what was going on. And I love when you learn, unfortunately, I don't want anyone to have to learn 5-figure lessons, but there is some silver lining in it where, you have gone deep on a lot of this stuff and provided a lot of value for the community. So we appreciate you coming on and talking about all of this. And